Big Séance Podcast, Episode 29. Welcome to the Big Séance Podcast. I'm Patrick Keller of BigSeance.com, and this is a place for an open discussion on all things paranormal, but specifically topics like ghosts and hauntings, paranormal research, spirit communication, psychics and mediums, and life after death. So basically, anything that pops up in my paranormal world. The candles are already lit, so you might as well come on in and join the seance. Welcome once again to the parlor here at the Big Séance Podcast. If you're a new listener today, giving us a try for the first time, then we also welcome you and hope you come back. Today we have a lengthy but very interesting episode. So we're going to go straight through without any interruptions. It might not initially jump right out as being paranormal, but if you stick with me, I think you'll understand why it fits right in. Today's guest is one of your favorites, Karen A. Dahlman. Her first interview on the Big Séance Podcast was all the way, well, honestly, it's really not that long ago, but it sure feels like it, but all the way back to episode 5. She was then co-host for episode 17, which was one of our special Halloween episodes. And she had contributions in episodes 19 and 24. Today, she gets the stage once again all by herself, though it's a different book this time. We're going to be talking about her first book, The Spirit of Creativity, Embodying Your Soul's Passion. So it's a really good book, I promise you, but the cool thing that you will find most interesting is the fact that she used the Ouija to help her write it. This wasn't really made public until later, and so we're going to get the scoop today. Let's get to Karen's bio. Karen A. Dahlman is an author, licensed therapist, business owner and consultant, and a leading expert Ouijaologist. She has been researching the use of the Ouija Board since 1973 by first-handedly using and perfecting her communication with varying consciousness and sentient beings via this tool with consistently amazing results. Having a strong spiritual connection to her spirit friends, as she has throughout her entire life, she teaches others within her books about the positive benefits of using the Ouija Board and other creative means as a pathway for expanding and deepening one's world and expression within it in the most profound ways. From working in the creative and humanistic field as a private practice art psychotherapist, and then more recently as the CEO of a consulting and design firm in the high-tech wireless industry, she found herself coming full circle with her career. From right brain to left brain to center brain, Karen strives to maintain a balance of her total brain within her heart. She endeavors to help others deepen into their unique possibilities found only within their heart, so that they too may discover their own empowerment to affect personal growth, their spiritual evolution, and a passionate expression of their calling. Karen shares her developed processes for doing this within her books. So here's the interview with Karen. So on this show, we know you as a Ouija genius, Karen, and my esoteric lifeologist. And I want to get into learning just how the Ouija played a role in this book that we're going to talk about. But first, do you want to tell us where all of this creativity came about in your background?
Absolutely. First of all, I want to say thank you for having me on your show again. It's such a pleasure to be here.
You're one of our favorites, so thank you for
thank
coming
you.
back.
Well, you're very welcome. And so the spirit of creativity, embodying your soul's passion, is really based upon my work as an art psychotherapist years ago. And creativity and art go hand in hand with me. I am creative. I think of creative things all the time, but I'm also an artist. I do visual painting, and I also dance. I teach dance all the time. For me, the creativity is such a part. It's such a part of my life. It's inherent. It's intrinsic. And I started working with other people through the therapy. It was an art therapist, and seeing that these people who thought they could never draw or couldn't express themselves, once they sat down and just were given the freedom and no control, no real rules other than you have an hour and a half or 2 hours in my session to take any art materials you want and put them on paper and express it however you can. There's no right or wrong. All of a sudden they went back to like maybe kindergarten or first grade, and some might finger paint. Some may use brushes. Some just felt like crumpling paper and gluing it to it, throwing glitter on it. And what they found in that process, and what I was able to witness too, was this unfolding of their ability to communicate more deeply about who they are, where they've been, their stories of their life, and being able to find healing through that process. And that is what art therapy is. It's to use an artistic expression and to find a way to just reveal yourself more authentically. So it allows you to bypass the talking, which is so in our brains, in our head, and it makes you, say adult-like things and appropriate things. And you can skirt the issue when you talk. But when you go into the art doesn't lie. And the creative part of the art, the part of expressing, that is the part I focus on with the art therapy, not the end result. It's how do they do their process? What was their process? Were they stuck in the process? What was that? What was their movement like as they were working the materials? What things did they speak about? So I'm sitting there, participating in this. My sessions I would do, it was very important that I participated along with them. Although I didn't get lost in my art as I would on my own, I was paying attention to everybody in that room, but also letting them know I wasn't afraid to go through this journey with them. So I was like this journeyman or a partner in their journey, and we go into it through the art each week or every session I would do with them, whether it was inpatient or outpatient, depending on what their diagnosis and their treatment was. But we go into this process and really look at themselves from the inside out, as opposed to sitting out here and hearing what they're trying to tell me. I could see it from the inside out. And it was such a powerful function in my own life as a child, just trying to make sense of the world. I had a very unique visions and visitations I would see, as you know, from my other books and stuff I've spoken about with spirits and communication from the other side and weird things that I would witness and see and auras and things of that nature, that the art was one way for me to be able to record it, number one, write it down, journal it, but also to draw it. And it was always my safety, my sanctity. So it made total sense for me to become an art psychotherapist and to use this with people. And you and I have spoken earlier about, I worked with some adolescents for quite a while, but who I really, really began to work with the most, and I really found such great joy in this population, was women and men, mostly women, but men too, and severe situations of psychiatric cases, such as multiple personality disorder, which is now called dissociative identity disorder, and also post-traumatic stress disorder. So I worked with a lot of different veterans. I worked with people that had been insanely abused, horrifically abused as children. And I worked with schizophrenics, some of the real most extreme cases in a lot of lockdown places, as well as ones that were trying to integrate back into their life. And so I really saw the gamut of some extreme psychoses and disorders. But the art was one way to always get into and reach into it and understand and hear the story in a non-threatening way. Because once you use the creative expression, what's inside you that's painful and hurts and you don't want to look at, it's now objectified. It's taken out of you and put on a third party, which is the paper, and you can actually kind of remove it from yourself. So it's a way to release it. It's a way to get a reprieve from it, but it's a way to also see it externally now, not just feel like you're always stuck in it. So it became a very powerful tool. And that's what these stories right here is what led me to write this book about the spirit of creativity.
So how often did you really have to make people understand that creativity was inside and had to really, pull out their confidence to know that they have creativity? Was that a incredibly common thing?
It was something every time I worked with somebody until they got used to seeing me maybe on a regular basis at a practice or a hospital, they definitely had to be reminded. And when I was in the hospitals, the way those work, and these are sometimes residential or sometimes people come in just for a month at a time, but you always have new people coming in. The door was always turning, and so we had always new people. So every session I had to always remind them about just a few parameters of the group. But I would always start by saying, this is a group where you get to express whoever you are in any way and form you want to. And of course, there's rules. You couldn't take scissors and point them at other people. And and some people couldn't use scissors, and you couldn't throw paint on the floor, but you had to work within, our big art room we had wherever I was located. But there was a freedom in that. But, I had to remind them that creativity is something that we're born with. It's intrinsic to all of us. It is not about painting a pretty picture. In fact, Patrick, the word creare is a Latin word that means to bring forth. If you look in the dictionary, creativity means they'll talk about it's more of a product or an expression. But if you really look at what where the root of the word came from, it's about the process. It's focusing on the creative act itself, not the end result. So when I explain it to people, not so in those many terms, but I would say, this is about you expressing, there's nothing right, there's nothing wrong. I want you just to take this hour, and this is what the theme is going to be, or the subject, and go for it. And if you feel stuck for a moment, just sit here for a moment and just take a pen in your finger and your hand and touch the paper and maybe write some words. And you just pick some colors that feel like you today. If you feel like whatever color it is, maybe you feel gold, maybe you feel black, use it, move it. And so from that process of not trying to say, today we're going to learn how to draw light and color and how to shade. It wasn't an art class at all. But what I found, this is really cool. In all the work I did that decade, what I found was people became quite good at painting and doing art, and they were quite pleased with their productions, although that was not the goal. It was a nice result to have at the end, but it was really more of them. It was like it's like a storyboard of their journey, and their storyboard of uncovering and remembering parts of themselves they might have forgot. When you're working with populations such as post-traumatic stress disorder populations, there's this whole idea that they dissociate, they leave their body in extreme stress. So there's part of them doesn't even remember what happened, or there's part of them that's being affected by what happened, but they don't have the memory even cognitively to match up to it. It's all blur. Now the art it's not the idea to bring the memory back. It can happen sometimes spontaneously. The idea is really to allow them to get into it and move it out of them. Move it out of them. This is like exercising your demons, if you will. You get to exercise this part of yourself and remove it. And so having such a really open and understanding place and space to be yourself for that hour and a half, 2 hours, it was really quite rewarding to them. And for me too, to watch this. And so a lot of these techniques in the book that I have, that I put in there, are all techniques that I've used with myself. And I still use with myself, but they're all techniques I've used with different clients. And I saw the results. And my job always as an art therapist was always part of the treatment plan was to help, work through finding productive ways to express themselves, as opposed to cutting, as opposed to committing suicide or attempting suicide, as opposed to overdosing, all these different things they would do that were destructive. It was a new means for communication of what was really happening and a new way to look at it. And so I was really inspired by my clients over the years when I wrote this book to help explain what some techniques that have worked for them, from extreme cases where I could see where they were really getting back to their authentic self and feeling like life was something to have again and not something to be fearful of. That's really the goal with this work.
Wow. And it's not as, heavy. It probably is some of the situations that you're talking about, but I definitely can relate to what you said about, there's no right or wrong answers. And, I teach middle school in a creative area, music. And very often, you do, especially in middle school for sure, you get, well, what's the right answer and what's the wrong answer? And, is it okay if I have, what's not seen as the right answer? And especially when, I work with composition or things like that, I have to, it's so hard for them to understand you can break a lot of these rules, just express yourself. And so in a much kind of not as heavy of a situation, I guess I can relate very much to that.
Yeah, that's great because that does exemplify the idea that there's diversity to be found within like a composition, and there's ways you can change it up to create that for yourself, to make it your unique its own for you, only unique. And that was what I always stress too, is that this is a unique way. This is not an art class, although I could teach you to paint pictures. And if you starting to work on something, you want to know how to, maybe you get to a point and you say, Karen, how do you do this, make this pop or this go recede? And I go, well, I can help you if that's a question you really have. I said, but watch me. I'm just going to scribble on this paper over here. And they go, well, that's fun. I'm like, okay, well, try it. Be fun with me. But it did get deep and heavy because, part of the process with art therapy is when you're complete with your picture, although it's not about process, it's not about the end result. Mm-hmm. I would have them talk to me about what it felt like, what the process was doing the work. What did you go through while you were doing that painting? What do you remember? What were you thinking of? Did you get stuck? I saw that the paint spilled. Did you get frustrated? What happened with you when that happened? And you start looking at all that, and that becomes metaphors for what the picture's about. And I'd say, tell me about this photo or this picture you painted, and don't tell me as if, oh, this is a tree and this is my house, this is a car. Tell me where things are in relationship to each other. Oh, well, the car is way over in the far left corner where the tree and the house are together. It's like, I feel like that. I don't get to use my car anymore. That's been taken away from me because I lost my license. Like, see your photos, your pictures showing that. So that sounds not deep, but when you start getting into it and you get into some issues, what people have, you start to really see how it comes out in the pictures. And it just gives them a way again to see. It's like reading their own internal messages, because this came from inside of them. And it's not me telling them what it means. It's them telling themselves what their messages are. So it becomes twofold. Not only do they get to hear what's going on within themselves, the second part is now they have an ability to look at it more subjectively and not be so stuck in the moment with the pain. It's outside of them, and they can really see it on a whole nother level. So it becomes this really beautiful dance of working with your inner and your outer, your inner images, and then outwardly, what did I express here?
Wow. The Spirit of Creativity has been out for a while, and there's some information about this book that we know now that the general public may not necessarily have realized if they caught this book earlier. Can you tell us what role the Ouija played in writing this book?
I thought you'd never ask. Well, listen, this is what's so fun about this book. And this book was, when I came out with it, it was published November of 2012, although I wrote it in 96 and 97. And then I went through a dark night of my soul, and I had to really live out every single page of this book and use all my techniques in here and to build myself back to where I needed to be. I was left penniless, basically, and started over fresh. And it was a beautiful emergence of myself and finding the strength in myself that I didn't quite know I had. But so when this book came out in November 2012, I immediately hit the airways. I was on Coast to Coast, the very first show, and I was talking about this book. Yet everybody, when I said my friends from the Ouija Board helped me write this book, everybody went, Ouija Board? Spirits? What? Oh my God. So I had to quickly write my second book, which everybody here knows, Spirits of Ouija, because they wanted to know how did I do my communication. Okay, so my first book, The Spirit of Creativity, Embodying Your Soul's Passion, was written with the help of my spirit friends. I would meet with them about every week, and I would have sessions with them, and I would talk to them about this book. They encouraged me to write this book. I knew I'd write a book one day, and it was more because of the work I was doing with my clients, and I thought it'd be more therapeutically related to therapy and all this, blah, blah, blah. But it's not. This book is more about your creative essence within to create the life of your dreams, to find your authentic self, to allow it to be heard, to express it in the world so you too can have an amazing life and co-create your world. And so it's more about empowering yourself to do that. And we all have this ability. I really wanted to break through the myths of creativity, what we think is to be creative, and that it's not about the artistic elite or an expression. It's really about who you are intrinsically inside. You'll probably hear me say that several times today, because I want to really let everybody understand this, that it is, you are naturally, inherently creative just by being born here on this planet. We're asked to co-create our lives. And this book will help you look at ways to do that. So my spirit friend said, you've got to write this, and we're going to write it from a very spiritual point of view. They said, it'll be your words, but we're going to be meeting with you and telling you what we think you should add to it, certain subjects to it. If you're missing something, and we're going to tell you to go back and write it. But they did tell me this. They said, Karen, in no shape or form do you mention Ouija, or do you mention any of your spirit friends? And my angel was working a lot with me at the time, Mary Angel, through the Ouija board. And she said, don't even mention me. I was like, really? That's horrible. But I got it because back then I really thought I was going to publish my book in 97, 98. And a practicing therapist, I couldn't just go out there and go, oh, I use the Ouija board. People would have freaked that I was using the Ouija board and seeing clients. And I didn't intermix the two like this. I go to my clients, we're doing Ouija board. This is my thing I did on my own. It was one of my tools I used to always develop myself spiritually and psychically, and all these different ways I've worked with the board over the years. But yet they were so passionate themselves about what I was writing about because they knew that I was very passionate about it, and they know the work that I was working and doing with people. So they would meet with me. I'd write a chapter, and then they say, well, you need to change this. Have you thought about this concept? And some of these chapters in here, they gave me the whole title too. Like creative dualism was one. I think it was creative communion was another. Different in here. They said, you need to write about this and now add a personal aspect of yourself to this. And they just really they critiqued it basically. I come back, and when I'm writing it, they're very aware. They're very much with me all the time, but they would come back to the session and they would say, okay, you really could have gone deeper with that. Or they said, hey, how's that writing going? What do you think of it? And I would say, well, I really like it, but it's not quite there yet. And they'd say, yeah, we agree. Or they'd say, no, it's really good. But I will say this, Patrick, there's the very first chapter of this book, and I just love this first chapter. It's called The Creation Spirit. It's only a few pages. That one I sat down and wrote, and I probably wrote it in about half an hour to 45 minutes. Where usually I toil over the words and how they're going to flow. But this one just flew out of me. And it was like, I felt like it was channeled from the whole group that I talked to all the time, just about how life started in a very spiritual way. And so that's little, I feel like that's the little gem of the book, and that sets you up for the whole ambiance of the book and what I'm trying to express throughout the whole book. So, and that one, I feel like they really, really were right there with me when I wrote it.
That just seems like it would have been such an exciting time going through that, but then you would have been used to talking to them on a normal basis already, right?
Yes. Well, I'll tell you what was, yes, I was. I was speaking to him since, 73, and here we were in 96. Yeah. But what was really exciting about it is that in 89, it was actually, let me back up. It was actually 86, 87. I had experience in my sorority where I really realized how profound this tool, the Ouija board, can be, and to use it to really help with grief and closure on death, number one. And then in about 89 and through 93, 4 years, we spoke to nothing but our higher selves. Now, I was a practicing therapist then, and I really just want to speak to my higher self, because I felt like if I can connect more with that source of myself, that creative divine source within me, I could probably really be a better therapist. I could probably create better things in the world. Back then, I was doing a lot of public speaking and doing workshops in Austin, Texas, and basically all over Texas. And I really wanted to develop those programs even deeper. And so we were talking about a lot of those things. They were always helping me with my book and career. My work in my career. But then they said, now's the time to write this book. And I was like, oh my God, goody, yippee. So that was exciting because they were on my side. I felt like, I was alone. I had to write this myself. They're like, no, we're going to help you. And I was like, oh, this is fabulous. So that was exciting that was our first project we took on together that went out into the world. So that was very exciting.
And a way for you to combine two really cool parts of your life finally.
Absolutely. Yes, it was, but I couldn't come out in the public with it yet. And I did it until 2012. And that's okay. There's always that period of time. Time is irrelevant in the other dimensions. And for us, it's the only thing that's relevant. And I get impatient sometimes, but I was okay with it. There was a lot of things that happened in between that allow me to have the flexibility, the freedom, and also the fearlessness. Those are all the F words, flexibility, freedom, and all the fearlessness to come out and just tell everybody, yeah, I've got these spirit friends I talk to, and I've been talking to them forever.
I'm sure are you familiar with the story of Patience Worth?
Oh, I know.
You may have even written a little about.
I mentioned her in my second book. That's I know Patience Worth.
Very much reminds me of that. I've always been fascinated by that story. And I think we even talked about her in a recent episode with another guest, but so interesting. It is.
Story. It is. It's very interesting, and it's very interesting when you start this work, and I to this day, when I say this work, I feel like what I'm doing on the Ouija board is a very creative way of accessing my divine and higher self. So there I am using creativity, that spark within me. I really think creativity is a spark within everybody. And once we access the spark within our life, we can allow things to flow more smoothly. That doesn't mean life doesn't have its ups and downs. It's just that we find our center quicker in those downs. So when we have those moments, we don't get thrown off as badly as we maybe had in the past. This first book helps to empower you to do that. And so I find, you're right when you said it's cool you do both these things are so important to you. And they're so intertwined now. They're so intertwined. I can't separate it. I can't separate them. And I really can't even separate my other work from it either. What I mean by that is if I always work on centering myself and trying to tap into the higher self and speak from that part of me and come from that part of me and try to make decisions from that part of me in all aspects of my life. And I find that when I do, things tend to move forward in a lot quicker pace, and I don't have to worry about that weird timeline that we always worry about, impatience. It actually seems to flow a lot nicer when I do that.
So let's dig in a little deeper with some of this. I want to tell you that one of the first things that really hit me, it should hit everybody. It's kind of obvious, but how you say our own beliefs and the beliefs we hold about others or about life in general can affect us. So you talk about limiting beliefs and moving beyond limiting beliefs. How do we move beyond limiting beliefs that we give ourselves?
Yeah, that's a good point, because first of all, you have to realize you have limiting beliefs. Most of us don't even know we have them. I find some to this day that I go, that really did limit me. And what I mean by a limiting belief, it holds you back from being really all you can be and allowing others to be all they can be. And the more we can allow others to be who they can be, it really helps us to let go and be ourselves as well, and vice versa. So when we have beliefs that, for example, we might stereotype a group of people, we might generalize about somebody, we may hold this preconceived idea when you meet somebody, and right there you're blocking the flow of whatever could have transpired between the two of you. This book, I talk a lot about the connectivity of us all and the interrelatedness. It's not just that we're all spiritual being having a physical experience. I don't just mean that. We are doing that. And we all very unique. But when we start judging people before we first meet them, or judge them because of the way they look, where they come from, their socioeconomic status, where they live, their religion, their sex, it's like we limit our ability to really interact freely and to really be ourselves. And worry. Okay. This might sound selfish, but yes, you should worry about yourself being open to being yourself. The more you can allow yourself to be yourself, the more you let go and allow others to be themselves. Then the magic can start to occur. Then the synchronistic events can start happening in your life. They'll start happening between you and other people. People will mysteriously show up when you're ready. When the student's ready, the teacher appears. Those things happen more and more. All of a sudden, that phone call that you just received was the answer you needed to get the next job. It's because you've opened to the possibilities of life. And we've got to first recognize we have beliefs that could limit us. And then we have to say, well, what have I done? Well, I've been judgmental. I've been very judgmental of people at my work. I think work is dog eat dog and they're out to get me. Well, if you could find a way to move around that, and maybe just even for a moment or for a week, and every time you start to find yourself saying something negative about it, change that thought, and because it does start with thoughts and feelings. That's where it all starts. If you can change that thought and say, today, I'm going to worry about me in the office and be the best I can be. I might do a little extra for so-and-so. I may come in earlier. I may stay later. I'm going to get that report done a day early. And just notice how the energy shifts. And you don't have to even tell anybody you're doing this stuff. And sometimes just by thinking it, you can shift it. I just did something recently on that level. It blows my mind. But I'll tell you what my spirit friends say. They say, Karen, are you really surprised? As soon as you know that you can create your world by changing your thoughts, you act like you're surprised, but that's what we've been telling you all these years. They're so right. This is what we do. So why are you surprised? Things start shifting, and you don't have to go out and toot your horn and tell people you're doing these things that to shift. They just will. You put out this energy, and this energy of kind of going above and beyond sometimes, or just being open to somebody being what you might call acting stupid, and just saying, I'll let it go. I'll laugh at it, and I won't judge them that they're dumb in the workplace or whatever. And just watch how it shifts. People want to be appreciated. And whether or not it's a verbal thing and they hear you telling them that, they're going to feel it from you. And everything just starts moving differently. And when things move differently on this allowing level of allowing, then all the really cool connective events happen, such as synchronicity I mentioned earlier.
So a lot of us, I think, are a part of this generation where we were told you can be all you want to be and you can do everything you want to do and you have so much potential. And I think, excuse me, and I think that sometimes people are very critical of this generation that has been told that they can do anything that they want. So we probably need to get back to that then.
Well, we do. We do. But, I think also what's happened when we think we could do everything we want, we think it all should be given to us too. And that could be a problem. Because I know people that get out of school and they think it should be CEOs right away. You could be a CEO right away of your own maybe business if you create one. But, there's also there's an apprenticeship in a way in life as well. And we earn our way through it. We move our way through it as we develop certain faculties within ourselves. We develop the faculty of patience. And maybe that takes us 10 years as opposed to 1 year. I think we have to really look at, yes, you deserve to be able to go and come and be and go for anything you want to be, but you also need to honor that, respect it, and earn it. Proof is in the pudding. You've really got to put the effort into it. And I think that's what's happened is when we heard that too much, that's a generation beneath me. When they heard that, I think they just thought, well, they deserve to have it. And so that also can create a lot of lethargy and apathy in a way, because all of a sudden they're disappointed they don't have it right away. I'm saying anybody at any place in their life, if they take time to look at themselves internally, take time to understand and remember, I really call it a remembering of who they really are and where they came from. And I mean like the divine source that we all have come from, the spark of our soul, of spirit, of passion, of God, of this grandeur source that we're all part of. If we really understand that inheritance, then we can really start looking at ourselves as, I am worthy. I am worthy of having great things in my life happen. I'm worthy of allowing myself to attract those great things. I'm worthy of allowing myself to pursue those. And there's a process in this. And this goes back to the art therapy, as I was talking about before. It's not the end result. It's the process. The spirits told me once that happiness is found in the path, not the destination. I think I wrote that in my second book. Mm-hmm. And that's, you heard a parable like that before, but that to me was so profound. And it was when I was doing therapy, it really made sense because we have to understand that life is a process. It's not quickly get to the end result, buy your fancy car in your house. Although when you do get there, you're going to realize there's something else you want and you're still going to feel probably not fulfilled. And that's because we forget about the process. We must, and this book teaches you to be in the process. That's the key. Be in the process of life. So be in the process of looking at your limiting beliefs. How do those hold you back? Do you like the way you behave? Do you like the way your life is right now? What would you change if you could change it? What do you think you need to do to change that? So it's really asking yourself these questions, going back to your own source, being patient with that source, knowing that you deserve and seeing that your source really can provide. But again, it's in a process. And in our dimension, it's a linear with time and space involved. Now, on the spirits level, where the ones I speak with, they're not at all concerned about the time. They're very patient. To them, everything's happening now anyway. It's a whole nother concept. So when they talk to me, like, okay, give it to me in human times. Come on, I can't wait. I have no patience. And they say, well, maybe you haven't quite learned everything you need to learn to be in that place. And once you really believe and you move in that direction with conviction, maybe you will be in that place, that job you want, or that owning that company or whatever it is. And I'll tell you, using this book and when I worked myself through every single process in there and looking at my limiting beliefs and looking at some of the things that happen, and it's not about blame. It's about taking ownership and responsibility and going, now I can really make some shifts because I really noticed this within myself. I was able to go own that company and that nice big house and the nice fancy cars and the nice money in the checking book and the great relationships of friends and all this fun things I've been able to do, and the time to continue to do that because I really did the work. I did the internal work. And it's not necessarily hard, but it's a matter of really looking at yourself honestly and authentically.
When a lot of us look at our lives and look at ourselves, I think a lot of us might also see some chaos. Mm-hmm. What do you say in your book about creativity and chaos.
Yeah, that's a great topic, because chaos, it's real. If we look at chaos in the moment of right here, we're sitting in this experience of something that feels chaotic. Okay, for example, when I went through my divorce, that was such a chaotic time. Oh my God, the rug was pulled out from under me. The roof was taken out from over me. All the money was gone. It was like, oh my God, that was real chaos. But the trick in chaos with creativity is an energy of the universe. It's in every single one of us. It flows through and around us and to us, and we don't own it. It's always with us. And it's bigger than ourselves in a sense. And so when you look at chaos from a creative perspective, and this is also from a scientific perspective in chaos theory, when something falls apart, it reorganizes itself in a whole new way, yet we can't always see the pattern of what it organized into, because chaos theory tells us it's a bigger picture and it's so further out. And all we can see right now is microscopic. We can only see that little right there in front of us. We forget that if we go maybe 20 feet out in each direction, we may see something more. So we have to, when we're in the chaotic moments, we need to do what we can to stay afloat. And that can be hard at times. And I remember doing that myself, doing what I had to do that. And it means I had to change. It means I had to let go of what I thought life was and move out of this nice home and move into like a 1-bedroom apartment and rent a room, put all my stuff in storage and have no money and just do what normal people do, when they're, down on luck. And I didn't see it as down on luck. I saw it as a process. I really had to reframe it. So chaos teaches us to reframe the way we're looking at the things in our life that are chaotic and we don't like, and all we want to do is escape it typically. But creativity in chaos theory would tell us to stay with the process again. It's a process, and try to see and imagine and envision where there could be some organization to this chaos further out in your further out reaches. So I would look at yourself and say, I don't like what's going on right now. This is so chaotic. Things are falling apart, and say, okay, well, maybe it's okay they fall apart. Where could it possibly be okay? Well, maybe it's okay if a life falls apart or you lose your job, only if you go, wow. You don't usually see it till 2020 hindsight, right? Mm-hmm. You get that great job you want. But let's say you just have the vision like, well, maybe this gives me an opportunity now to go for that new job. Maybe this gives me opportunity to have a new relationship, or not have one and get back to who I am and not forget who I am. It rearranges and reorganizes our life in a whole new patterned way. And there is a pattern to it. But the pattern you may not be able to see, it's further out. And just knowing that everything in life is about evolution. Everything is about growth, decay. That is what the cycle of life is about. And so we understand that we're just part of that cycle of life. We're going to have our growth. We're going to have our moments of decay. And that's going to happen throughout our life. Growth, decay. Things are going great. They fall apart. And that's just to take us to the next level of our evolution. Maybe one rung up on the ladder, maybe 5. And it's not so much you're better when you do this, it's that you're not better. That's not the word. You're grander in yourself. You know your greater self. You start to understand what your weaknesses and what your strengths really are. You know your weaknesses, but now you see your strengths. Now you're able to see parts of yourself that you may never have blossomed or allowed to grow before. I could tell you that's what happened to me. I saw things in myself I never knew I could own a high-tech company. I'm not even high-tech related. I'm therapy. I'm art. I'm right brain. I'm not left brain. But I own a really well-known company in LA that is high-tech, left brain. It does quite well. And I never knew that, but just by trusting in this larger picture that was taking me to California, taking me out of my comfort where I was, taking me into new ideas and areas, and just allowing me to dream bigger and bigger, and going with where things were reorganizing itself, things just started flowing in. And it was just crazy cool how it happened. And when these times happen, when you're not so comfortable with what's going on, really see if you can step out for just a moment and be objective to it, and see if you can find some kind of one good thing in it, one possible good thing. And this is not a Pollyanna way of thinking. It's a way of actually empowering yourself. Because if you don't find that one good thing, you're going to go, oh, woe is me. This sucks. Oh my God. And believe me, I did that too. And you eventually work the progression of getting to that. But if you can find that one thing, that's the one saving grace that's going to allow you to start spiraling up and out of it to the next rung of evolution for yourself.
I think one thing that helps me sometimes when you're in some of those chaotic moments is, and I think a lot of people spiritually probably believe that, before you came to this life, you may have scheduled some of those chaotic
nice.
moments, as learning experiences. Do you believe maybe that is the case sometimes?
I absolutely do. I absolutely believe in soul contracts that you made with yourself and with others. And I do believe that things aren't written in stone, but things, you definitely pick certain circumstances to come into this world. And those circumstances and the people and your lives, where you were born, the family you're born into, all help shape you. And it all helps push you to be your greatest self. The third book I'm working on right now really gets you immersed in that. It really starts talking about this on that level, because I think it's important that we do understand we have the ability to be empowered in every single moment. It's really through the moment of that choice you choose. Just in that moment, choose that choice that's going to allow you to feel more empowered, as hard as it may be. But yeah, I agree with the whole idea of setting up contracts with ourself and with our soul, basically, and with others. And so I believe in, and obviously you're touching on it right now, past lives or future lives. You believe in multiple lives, and I believe in multiple lives as well, multiple incarnations.
Yeah, for me, I think it makes those chaotic moments so much better.
Doesn't it?
Easier to get through when you're like, whatever, I planned this, I'm sure.
That's funny, because I would say to myself, oh, this is just a drop in a bucket of many lives.
Right.
but that's not to throw it away or to negate it or to downplay it, but it's to go, okay, Karen, that's another perspective to look at it. I go, you can still have the perspective that woe is me, life sucks. Or you can also have a small piece of a perspective that maybe you created this. And that was when I was really going through some trials and tribulations. And I think now, I know now when I have these things, I still get upset and I may not like it at first, but then I will take out my journal and I'll take that moment when I'll write down, okay, what is the one thing in this you can see that looks like it's beneficial? All right. You don't agree with this person. I don't agree with you, or you don't agree with this system, but you're stuck in it now. What's the benefit? What's the highest good for both parties involved? I may not always quite pursue it directly, but I know what it is. And that kernel of truth helps me to grow from there. And so I like that you say, well, in the greater scheme of things of 1,000 lives, or millions of years, whatever it ends up being, you can kind of put it in better perspective, that it is like a drop in the bucket.
5 lives from now, you're going to look back at this moment and laugh.
You'll be laying on some therapist's couch doing hypnosis, recalling your past lives, and you go, oh my God, if I only known that back then, 10,000 years ago, shucks.
That's funny.
It is, but that's kind of how it works. And so if we could look at our life like that right now, like we have many moments of birth and decay, kind of like lives, like 9 lives of a cat, birth, decay. And we can go, because you look at your life now. We all can do this. Listeners, you can look at your life and go, God, what was the worst moment you had? Do you remember being in that worst moment going, oh my God, it's not going to get any better. This God, why me? Why me? And then, 5 years down the road, maybe a month down the road, you go, oh, thank goodness that didn't happen. Thank goodness I got out of that situation. Oh my God, I see what happened. I see why. We need to remember that happens. It happens all the time. Birth, decay, birth, decay, birth, decay. Mm-hmm. It's constantly happening to us. Sometimes it happens in larger scale. And when it happens in larger scale, know that you now have you've chosen personally to really push yourself to great growth, to great insights, to great evolution of who you are. So you can live your passion. So you can be in those places where you really do understand that you're worthy and who you are, your well-being of yourself, and that you can express that in the world. It really pushes you to do some great things.
You also said something fascinating that caught my attention. I remember it got a Post-it flag in your book, but you talk about sleepwalking through life. So how do we know? Will you always know if you're sleepwalking through life? How do we pinpoint those places?
Yeah, that's a good. We don't always know we're sleepwalking through life. I think many of us don't. I think we just go about the prescribed roles we're supposed to live in our life. We think we're supposed to live, and that was probably more a generation or two above me, where the woman and man got married, and the woman didn't have a job. The man worked, and he fed the family, and our society was set up more for that. Our culture was set up more for that, and the woman stayed home, took care of the kids, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's really blessed, because for fact that is a full-time job. I was thrilled and blessed that I had my mother at home for us 4 kids and really raised, and that was lovely. And I don't think she sacrificed in those regards. But then as our culture started changing, and many of us My era, your era, we saw there's many different possibilities, different paths we can go down. And I think that if we see them, but then we go, I'm not going to try them because I think this is what I was taught in my family growing up, that I must go to college, I must get this job, I must get married, I must have these kids. And that you start feeling the pressure. That's just one example. But I want to be clear, because you have kids doesn't mean you're sleepwalking through life. I'm just saying when you go down those prescribed roles you were given and taught. And that's kind of what I was taught, but that's not the direction I went. And, I chose outside the box. So when we're sleepwalking through life, we sometimes don't even understand what our passion is. We go about our life. We go to work, we come home, we have our dinner, we watch TV, go to bed. We do it over and over again. Some people like that, but many people, maybe because our culture's changed, we have this technology and so many other things we can do. The world is at our fingertips, that they do it anyway, and they feel like they're living a dead-end life. They start to talk about feeling dead inside, and there's burnout. There's high degrees of burnout. There's alcoholism is high, drug abuse is high. It's all the things we do when we're just feeling like we're somehow downplaying who we really are inside. Sleepwalking through life does that. It keeps us in a state of, I guess, boredom. It keeps us in a state of apathy and purposelessness. And so the key is you really want to just ask yourself, I just quite often, as I start shifting in life, I just say, what really is the meaning of all this? What is my purpose in life? And then when you start doing that, you start waking yourself up to, there's other options out there. So let's say I do have to go work a job every day, most of us do. And I have to get up, go to work. I go work out. I come home. I make the dinner. We feed the mouths. And then we watch TV, go to bed. But you feel like something's missing. That's your first key, that maybe there's some sleepwalking going on. Maybe we should wake up to what's missing. Ask yourself, what's missing? Well, I've always wanted to take up music. I wanted to play an instrument. Maybe what you start doing is incorporating that. Find a way. Maybe it's one night a week you take your guitar lessons. Or maybe it's on a weekend you start jamming with a drum and you go to these drumming circles. It's allowing that part of your life that you always wanted to do, that you knew you could do as a child, that those dreams and aspirations, and you start to pull them into your life little by little. And as you do that, you find that brings you joy. And it gives you a sense of balance, if you will. It gives you a sense of frivolity and fun in your life, where you might have just been doing the same old thing, the same old grind every day. It kind of helps you wake up from that. And if you're okay with the life you have, then you don't worry about it. You're not sleepwalking. But if you have this inkling of something you're missing, that's a sign that you should start asking yourself, what is it that I would like to do, I haven't done, or that I knew I'd do as a child? It's always great to go back and look at when you were a kid, and what were those things you just loved to do, or used to tell everybody I'm going to be when I grow up. Firefighter, president, or I was going to be an artist. What were you going to be? Were you going to be a musician?
For a while I was going to be a composer.
See?
And I still, do a little bit of that. Not so much lately, but I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. I just didn't know what it was going to be. Mm-hmm. One year it was going to be an elementary school teacher, and then, I played school in the attic every year of my life, and my parents would force my sister to come up and, be the student while I was the teacher. And then, I was going to be a drama teacher, and then it was going to be a band teacher, and then it was going to be a choir teacher. And so I always knew I would. I just had to kind of find the right niche, I guess.
And so you're one of those you're a very fortunate person, because you really went after your passion. And I did too. I found ways to do mine as well. But you really went after it. You knew you loved music, you loved composing, you loved playing, and you knew something would be with music, and you loved teaching, and you're doing that. So you're one of the fortunate people. There's a lot of people out there who go take just a regular job and not so specialized as you are, or as I am, and they do it because they have to, feed the mouths that live in their house, but they don't find that spark. They don't find that joy in the moment of the day of getting up. It's just a grind. You've heard people say, "Oh, I gotta get to work. Oh, I gotta," yes, we have to do that. But what you were able to do is really go full and bring it in. for me, I wasn't able to bring the spirit stuff into my life on a outwardly, but that's such an important part of me, my work with the different spirits and my creative work. I always was able to be creative. So I was able to be a part of that, but maybe not to the degree I would have liked to have. And so I'm waking up from some of those other things of just doing a regular job and allowing myself to incorporate this and coming full force out in the world doing it. So I encourage everybody, it's not like you have to switch careers. It's about just bringing that wealth of joy back into your life. It's something you've always wanted to do. It could be as simple as, I really wanted to write. I want to be a writer. And so why not sit down and start blogging? Or why not just, journal as a good place to start writing? You don't have to go out and publish a book, but just bringing that aspect back to your life allows you to wake back up. And when you wake back up, that's when you really, it's a pathway, a channel back to your passion of who you really are, to your authentic self. It's just about a way of incorporating another aspect of yourself back into your life.
Yeah, in many ways, I think that's kind of what happened with, the blog and the podcast for me. That's kind of, as you're saying that's what it brought me to. It's kind of my journaling right there.
It is. And then that's your love for paranormal too. Mm-hmm. So you're able to bring that back in, as I'm doing with the work on the Ouija. It's my love for paranormal as well, my experiences, and bringing that back in with my work. My work that I do with the cell towers, then that didn't go hand in hand, but yet I could do them both, and I could do them in their own worlds, and it works. It's a nice way for me to really find that joy of the spirit realm, but then my creative realm is building the company and writing the books and creating something that's a part of me. And so, I find a way to balance that, and if people can. Just to bring just a little piece in, you may just find it makes all the difference to that job you're doing, out of drudgery sometimes.
So let's try something interesting, maybe random and weird. So here's 4 terms from your book. Okay. Maybe you can pick a few, or let's just see where you take it. So there's meditation, self-hypnosis.
Okay.
Dreams.
Oh, yeah.
Or how about trans awareness?
Ooh, God, they all go together, don't they?
Where's that going to take us?
Okay, well, I think the key, but this whole book is about the keystone, the cornerstone. That could be the apex as well. What holds it all together is the idea that we need to have a communication back within ourselves. Every single one of those things. Actually, trans awareness is a result of the communication within ourselves. So meditation, self-hypnosis, dreams is our channel to hear what's going on inside, to channel that higher self of ourself. It's not about talking about channeling entities, although that can happen. It's kind of happened with me, but it can also just about being the best you can be, really pulling in all aspects of yourself to show up fully present. Show up fully present in life. Doesn't mean you're perfect. Doesn't mean you're good. It just means that you are present in yourself of who you are. You know your worth. You know your confidence. You know you deserve. You know you're willing. You're able, and you show up and you feel that. And every day becomes an aspect of joy. Becomes something you look forward to. So meditation and self-hypnosis are very similar. They can be. Meditation is I give you in this book, I tell you all about how to do it and even how to create your own audios from it. You can create your own CDs that you can listen to later on. So you can actually use it as a guided meditation to take you back into that state. But I usually do a guided meditation or my own meditation. I talk about both in the book, but that will allow you just to spend quiet time with yourself. Start with 10 to 15 minutes, set a timer. I just set my little phone for 10 minutes and it goes off. I do 30 minutes now, and you set it and you sit there and you go really quiet with yourself and try to just see if you can clear your mind of your thoughts. That's a hard thing to do. Mm-hmm. Isn't it?
I struggle with meditation.
Yeah. And guess what? I did for many, many years. And so I got into the whole movement meditation, which was the dance. And it really means it's being present in your moment. It's being in the now. So when thoughts do come, when I'm sitting still and trying to meditate, which I now, if I don't do it in a day, I really start to withdrawals. I miss it, because what it allows me to do is to get into a space where I do find a way to quiet my mind, and maybe thoughts come, but then I feel re-energized. there's so many benefits to meditation, and medicine and science talks about it now. It actually helps with heart rate. It helps with certain diagnoses, stress levels. So it's really a beneficial tool health wise, but it's great as a way to start getting still with yourself. And after a while, you start to do it, you may see a kaleidoscope of colors in your mind. I do. Some people don't. You may hear words. You may get a thought. And even if you follow that thought, that's okay. You just go with it and then bring yourself back. But I tend to get great ideas when I come out of it. And I pair that meditation with journaling. So I highly recommend, we didn't mention journaling, but I recommend journaling with everything. And that's going to go hand in hand with the dream work. Once I come out of meditation or even self-hypnosis, I have my journal there, and it's really helpful to write down your experiences. Today, I really struggled trying to release my mind of thoughts. In the middle of that, I started seeing a kaleidoscope of colors, and they did this geometric patterns. And then I remembered a thought that happened to me. Oh, it was an incident I had 10 years ago. And then I had an idea that I could have done that differently. And all of a sudden I had this idea for something to do today at work. It's just weird how it goes. And you write it all down. And next thing you know, you go, I can maybe use that in my next book. It's something like that. I'm not trying to find something to use, but it becomes that sometimes. So people will sometimes meditate to either clear their mind or for stress reduction. And that will happen no matter what. 2, it could also be used, as I said, to get ideas and just allow your mind to silence so you can get to that point where they start emerging on their own. And then self-hypnosis to me is it relates a lot to meditation because you're in that private inner state. Yet under hypnosis, there's a guidance there. So with self-hypnosis, you're taking yourself and you're going down into, and I have this whole thing in my book. You can, again, read it, and there's pauses in there so you can read it. And now you find yourself traveling down. And now you're traveling down deeper and deeper. So you'll have the pauses in there, and you pause and say it. And you lay down. The idea of self-hypnosis is you don't want to fall asleep, but if you did, and there's a guided hypnosis track playing in the background, you're still going to get the information because you started programming your mind as you started going into the suggestions. So hypnosis uses this focused awareness is what it is, where meditation is not focused awareness. Self-hypnosis, it's a focused awareness to go into something, to find something, to learn something, to uncover something. I used it a lot for past life regressions for clients. And I also use it a lot to change conditions with people as well. And for myself, I use it maybe to go into a special cavern or a cave, and you open a treasure chest and something comes out, and it's just to surprise yourself with surprises from your subconscious. And it works really nicely. And again, whatever your experience was, write it down. The more you write down in your journal, this is what's really cool to me about this, is that you begin to find the golden thread that weaves it all together. And that golden thread becomes your path, your unique journey. And it begins to show you symbols and signs that are meaningful to you only. And it begins to communicate to you. Your subconscious begins to communicate to your conscious mind. So whatever's subconscious, unconscious, you're bringing it up to the consciousness of your mind that now you can really readily accept it, integrate it, use it, do something with it, and get great creative ideas come from this place. It's a wellspring of information. And when we tap it, we can start incorporating this back into our life. It's like to me, it is like a treasure chest. It's always like a bunch of surprises. It's like Christmas when you start uncovering them because you get these neat, cool things coming up. Dreams, Patrick, I love dreams. Do you record your dreams by chance?
I went through a phase where I kind of off and on have recorded my dreams, but I don't often remember them. And maybe it goes hand in hand. Maybe if I would record them more often, I would remember them. But I was just wondering, I was thinking you must have absolutely fascinating dreams. I can just imagine.
What's really interesting about the whole dream thing, it's true. People don't always remember their dreams. And that's just normal. A lot of people don't. A lot of people have really one-dimensional dreams or dreams where they just watch somebody doing stuff. They're not even participating, or it's black and white, or they get snippets. You're right. I have very colorful dreams. I'm very three-dimensional. I'm interacting with people. I have lucid dreams. I'm dreaming. I'm inside of a dream dreaming. It's like all weird kind of stuff happens. I love dreams, but I have been working with my dreams since a very, very, very young age. And I have been writing my dreams down throughout the years, over the years. Sometimes I write down more than others. And when I'm doing dream groups, and right now I just write down the great ones that I have that are really cool. But when you start writing them down more regularly, you're right, you'll start recalling. And anybody can learn to recall their dreams. It's just a matter of programming yourself to do that. So a self-hypnosis will help. Going to bed at night, having just a pad of paper and pen next to your bed, right there, ready to write on. I know you're going to go, it'll be illegible. That's okay. Or you can have your little dictaphone. I have my little recorder now that I use during my little seances now that I could pick
good.
up. And,
I like that.
Yeah, do you like that? Right. So you could pick that up and just talk into it. I will write it down though, typically, and it's kind of illegible, but it's enough words so I can remember. Because if you go, I'll remember it, you'll go right back to sleep. You will go right back to sleep. But if you write it down, you won't forget. You'll have it in the morning and you could really look at it. I've had some profound prophetic dreams, and I know other people I have too. I've met dead relatives in my dreams. I speak to my spirit guides in my dreams. And then I have just the mundane dreams, which I think are mundane. But, you were working out. We have dreams just to work out our life, to work out the frustrations and the issues in our life, or to rehearse and play. But you might get some prophecy dreams. I have. You may get some dreams like connecting to your loved ones or a past animal, a loving pet of yours that moved on. Some really cool things can happen in dreams. Dreams to me is the true traditional language of the soul. It is not just your subconscious, unconscious mind talking to you. This is your soul self. That's all that you are, not your body that you are, not your physical Patrick Keller body or Karen Dahlman body. This is your soul self that has all those incarnations we talked about earlier. It speaks to you. It's more readily accessed in the dreams. And it can be accessed to during hypnosis and meditation. But dreams is the natural way, just automatic way that we're in that realm of our soul. And so if there's a progression of how to get to the soul, I would go through your dreams. And I would combine that with the meditation, the self-hypnosis, along with the journaling. And the dreams to me, now you're get a whole movie to watch. And they will get brighter, and they will get more memorable, and they will tend to change as you transform with this and open up to it. Most of us don't take the time to listen to our inner selves. We're so busy out in life, running around.
Right.
And there's a value to it. I mean, what do you think the value is, Patrick, to learning to listen to your inner self?
Well, I think I think if you don't listen to yourself, to me, that's what I was thinking about when I wrote down the sleepwalking through life. If you don't, it's kind of like, I'm in a phase now where I feel like I need to start meditating again. And, I struggle with that. And so, and I've gotten into the podcast, and this has so changed my life, and I love it, and it keeps me busy, and I have my to-do list, and, I'm constantly working at it, and I'm like, wait, maybe I should slow down a little bit, so I think that's the part I'm missing is listening. And
I think Patrick, and because we've had conversations about your podcast and you doing that transformation into it, I really believe that that's you listening to your higher self by doing that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's you tapping into what you really, isn't it? It's one of the things you love, your photos of the cemetery you take, which are incredible. If you guys haven't seen him, go look at his page, his website, because he's got some incredible cemetery photos on there. And that's your love of the paranormal. And then you're doing your podcast, interviewing these people. You are listening to yourself. We listen to ourselves. This is what this book is about. It's about listening to yourself in everyday ways. We're talking about some more spiritual, metaphysical ways and techniques to try to help you incorporate it in day to day. The idea is not to have this life that's like one side here, and there's a schism between the two of them. There's no connection. The idea is to weave this back into your everyday life. So you are incorporating all these things into your life. It's not just you do this and then you change your hat and do this, although many of us are kind of schizophrenic like that, or multiple personality like that. And there's nothing we have to do. There's times in our life we have to do that, There's times in your life when you don't go to your school and you don't just talk about, the cool ghost story you heard, or maybe you can with your kids, but I don't. I can't go to my work and do that, or I just probably lose my contracts. You don't do that. So there's a time and place, but yet in my day-to-day life, in the sanctum of my own home, I get to be all of that, and I listen to myself so I can bring all this forth. That is creativity. You listening to yourself, bringing forth what's inside of you, that is the creative divine spark. That is the message of this book. And Patrick, you're doing that with your beautiful podcast and your pictures, your photos.
Well, good. I'll keep doing it.
Well, you should. And see, now doing all this is where we're talking about trans awareness now.
Yeah.
And this is synchronistic things that happen. Trans awareness is a word I coined for that book. And it really relates to when you're in the flow of who you are, you're not sleepwalking through life. You're not making false pretenses or judgments or blocking yourself in all these ways we do, because we all do it. It's human. We're human. It's natural. But when we're in this flow of what we're talking about, bringing forth in you what it is you desire and you enjoy doing and incorporating that into your life, magical things and mystical things start to happen. We like to call that synchronicity. I like to call it trans awareness, because now my awareness is spanning out beyond this physical corporeal body of Karen Dahlman. It's out there in the ethereal with my soul, reaching out to others who are also doing the same. And I'm drawing all this stuff to me as they're drawing it to them. So things start happening that line up with, like people say, the stars were aligned, and all of a sudden I got that great new job, or I was able to make that money and buy that house, or I was able to meet these great people that are my wonderful friends, or meet my soulmate. You start becoming that which you want. You start opening yourself in grander ways to allow that to show up and come into your life. Things realign around who you really are when we start to incorporate all this of who we are inside and listen to ourselves and bring that back into our lives. And that's what I call the trans awareness effect.
I love it. You are such a unique person with a unique experiences and knowledge, and I think that's why we love you so much here. But what do you think, and maybe this is a completely random, silly question, but what do you think led Karen Dahlman to what she's doing now? Why these specific writings? Why Ouija?
Well, what led me to it was being very young. And I'm excited to say my next book's going to go into detail about my imaginary playmate. So I'm just thrilled. I'm liking the way it's coming out right now. I can't wait to share it, but I don't want to ruin any of that. But just to say, when I was very, very young, I saw a lot of things that I guess most people didn't see. I didn't know that at the time. I know that now through sharing with people and learning about stuff. But I had what was called imaginary playmate, but it wasn't imaginary to me at all. And in fact, I really believe it was what my spirit friends tell me now was that it was an angel. I always thought it was like a sprite. It looked like a little elf, but it would change sizes. And it's because of what I needed. I was a little person, it was what size I needed to see this being as. But this little being would be with me all the time and talk. And although I had brothers, I had at that time another brother, an older brother, and we played together. Then I had two younger brothers after that. But it was those younger years. My older brother went to school. He was starting in kindergarten. I was only 3. I didn't get to go yet. But he came about that time. I say he. It's really androgynous, but I say he. And he was with me for a few years, and he would just talk to me about all kinds of things. And I remember it was more like play. We'd play, but he would talk to me to not be afraid of spirits or things I could see. I mean, teach me these were good things to have. And I remember telling Mom, and she just said, "Oh, you're just crazy. What are you doing? Who are you talking to?" I'm talking to my friend. His name's Dacky. I'm talking to Dacky, and from his experiences and him making it seem just so normal, and everybody else made it sound like it was stupid or crazy. And I know that I wasn't. And it was so real for me. And then I started seeing all kinds of visitors in my rooms at night. Right around that time, I got a little older, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's when the Ouija board came into play, and I was able to actually, from the Ouija board, learn what some of these things were in my room that were visiting me, and names and who and stuff. And that's what really set me on this whole journey of psychology, creativity. It was my way of always expressing what was going on, writing, journaling, keeping diaries, doing artwork, allowing imagination to happen. Although I don't believe I imagined Dacky, but even if I did, it was such a bright part of my life that it really set the stage to make sense of some of these weird things that were happening. I could see auras and just weird stuff like that. And the writing for myself as I got older, and being a therapist and all this work I do with people has really helped to maybe more normalize some of their experiences, because our consciousness, and I'm talking not about the brain, I'm talking about like our mind, our consciousness about ourselves. There's so much we don't know about it. And we're only guessing what these subconscious, unconscious, all these memories, egos, all that super ego is about. We really don't know the full extent of it. All we know is that it can really be used in many different ways to benefit us or also to harm us. In terms we can project out there some of our negative stuff, and then you get some of those projections we've talked about before in your other shows with some of those scary characters, spirit demons and stuff. this became my pathway of the writing of the art to put it in perspective for myself and to understand that it's a creative aspect of ourselves to be able to tap into this, not just the spiritual realms, but into ourselves on these deeper conscious levels of consciousness. So I really wanted to explore consciousness and understand, why do some people see some things and some people don't? And why do some people choose a certain path in life and others don't? Why do people have a hard time getting over experiences some people don't? It was really looking at this balance of polarities within people, and how do they come to terms with that? How can they really still have a great life that they would call good and great, without trying to downplay what their experience is, but to become better because of their experiences. And so that really led me into all this work that I do. So basically, the bottom line to what I'm trying to talk about in all my books, all the talks, and the work I do in therapy, and all the way up to what I do now with my clients and people that work with me, is I really think it's important that people can learn to express the best of themselves, become the greatest self that they are within, tune into this part of them that's larger than their body, that's this soul experience, and begin to use that, the higher self within your life, and make decisions and move from this place so wonderful, incredible things can align with that energy, and you feel like that it's a joy. It's a joy to live each moment of the day.
So we are so fortunate that you had that imaginary little sprite friend to get this all started.
It did. It really started in a big way, and I'm going to be sharing more about that in the third book. And I think it's a great little story.
Oh, can't wait. So what's coming up next and in the future for Karen A. Dahlman?
Oh, well, what's going on is the new book it's basically about the alchemy of personal transformation. The title is not set. I never set the title until I finish everything and the editing's done. Then I know the title at that point. But it is about alchemy of personal transformation, and we really get into mystical experiences in our life, how to immerse yourself in those and have your life being a mystical, fun experience all the way, while not ignoring some of the stuff that's happened in your life, to really integrate it. But it's not going to be so therapeutic. It's going to be more mystical and spiritual. So you might look forward to reading that. And I'm going to talk about the Ouija in my life a lot more in that, and how the Ouija's been a great oracle for me throughout life. And I'll explain that. So that's going to come out beginning of April. Big looming deadline right now to get to my editor end of February. So we're working around the clock now on it.
Boy.
Yeah, it's tough. And then the other thing I'm excited to share with your listeners is WouijaCon, the first WouijaCon ever. It's being sponsored by the Talking Board Society. It'll be held in Baltimore, Maryland, April 23rd through the 25th. It's Thursday through Saturday. It's going to be an incredible show. There's a great lineup of people. Everything Ouija, only Ouija, the good, bad, the ugly, and everything in between about Ouija. So some of your favorite people will be there. I'm really honored to be one of the guest speakers and event people that'll be there speaking and doing workshops and sessions and stuff of that. But we're going to be doing some fun stuff. So check it out. Go to my website, because I have all the Ouija information there for this WouijaCon in Baltimore, Maryland, and I have information about my new book coming out too. So you can always find me, Patrick, as you know, KarenADahlman.com or CreativeVisionsPublications.com as well.
You rock so much. I always love talking with you, and we'll be talking to you again. I just
cannot wait. And you rock too. And thank you so much for having me. And I want to give a shout out to all of your listeners. They're great people, and a lot of them have connected with me as well. So I appreciate that.
Very cool. I'm glad they do, because that's what I did when I heard you on a podcast the very first time. I was like, man, I've got to contact her.
Oh, thank you. We have fun together, don't we?
We do. Giant nerds.
We are together. Yes, we are. Ghost nerds unite.
Woohoo!
Woo! And Patrick also does a Ouija board, so I love that about him.
Yeah, it's been a while. I need to break it out again. I think it's time. for some EVP too.
Oh, I think so too.
Maybe both together.
Yes.
For show notes, including links to anything we may have mentioned in this episode, visit BigSéance.com, now the home of both the blog and the podcast. Just click on the Big Séance Podcast logo or find it in the menu. You can also find and subscribe to the show on iTunes and Stitcher. Do you have any comments or feedback? Please contact me at patrick@bigseance.com. You can call my feedback line at 770 775-TELL-ME. That's 775-583-5563. You can also record audio feedback right from the site using the SpeakPipe link included in the show notes. I could decide to include your voice in a future show. Thank you so much for listening and reading. Unfortunately, it's time to blow the candles out, but we'll see you and light them again next time.